We're now going to turn to clearing up and levelling this background here. We've been able to lower the background like so. One of the problems we have is that this edge here does tend to foul the blade so that it can't make its cut, and this is especially true of smaller parts. We've been able to do it here, but not very well. It's not very clean. This is where a bent gouge comes into its own, because you can get in much up closer and into smaller areas. Obviously you'd use a narrower tool for here, but you can get into smaller areas. Now the same problem we have is when we want to clear up this area, and it's even more difficult because I don't want to make a scooping cut so much as a sort of slicing cut, and this edge here again, or wherever I come from, is fouling the blade. So again, what we need is what's called a short bent, or a spoon gouge that will actually sit in there and make this cut. So it's the short bent gouges that are going to come into its own in this sort of tight little carving. This is a little set of bent gouges, bent flat gouges made by File, that I use quite a lot for this sort of work. It's a really useful little set. They go from something like half an inch, 14mm, right down to a couple of millimeters, 1/16 of an inch here. And what I've done is I've actually scraped the varnish off the original tools, and I've stained them so that on the bench I can always find these tools among all my others. So this is what I've done. There are some videos, some lessons on short bent tools, which I'll flag up under the video. But this is the sort of tool that you want for this sort of work. The grain in this carving is going across in this direction here, like this. Now you might be able to go with the grain, and the thing to do is to test it a little bit to see what happens. So they're putting the tool down and sliding across and seeing what happens. Are we getting a clean cut that way, or do we need to come this way? Going with the grain will always be best, and using the largest tool possible, the widest tool possible to begin with, is always good. But if you are not sure, you can always go across the grain like this with a slicing cut. So I would start it off like this. Little slicey cuts. What I've done is I've made a nice clean area here, and that's going to be my starting point, and then I'm going to extend this to the side. Now I can see here that I'm pulling against the grain if I go in this direction, so I would probably need to come down here on this direction. And what I'm able to do, if you can see, is actually rest the edge of the tool against this wood here and use it as a sort of fence. I need to keep checking the depth. This is going to be a finished surface. They don't all have to be exactly the same, but they have to just look the same. This is my direction with the grain. What I want to do is remove any of these little grooves that you see from the lowering. So all those have got to go, and this has got to be a nice finished surface. So I gradually work this area out, going in the best direction. And if I've got my cut right coming down here, and my cut coming in this way, then the bit will pop off. If I haven't, then my choices are to go back over here and just slice that corner like that, so that then the wood will come away. And what I'm after is a nice sharp edge here. Or indeed I could use a skew chisel like this and just drag it along the edge. Yeah. Or what I can do sometimes is I can use a very narrow, this is a 6mm number 3, because you can make that edge do pretty much what a skew chisel, that corner rather, do what a skew chisel can do. We can get in a little bit here with this, I can see, because now I'm coming this direction. But I think it's best to carry on with this one. I've turned the piece of wood around so you can see better. I was getting in the way of the camera. So this way gives me the cleaner cut here, in this direction. So very carefully moving this around here like this. Pushing it up to the... Let me just show you that movement again. So this tool, the edge is sitting on that wall, and I can actually make it go along the wall like this, scooping it out. And then, if there's a little bit not come out, just nick it off. So if I've got a slight stab in there, that's fine. Not too much though. And I'm going to work my way over this bit here. So when I think I've finished, I'm going to turn the light and have another look. Checking the depth. Pretty good. Just want to make sure this is all clean, no stab marks. I'm going to turn it around again in a moment so I can just show you what I do about this bit here. Let me just finish over here first. So when it comes to a narrower bit like this, obviously I'm going to have to pick a narrower short bent tool. So now this corner is a bit of an issue, so I'm going to leave that for now and I'm going to show you what I do with that later. So just do your best for the corner, but just stop there. Make sure this is all clean. So that needs a little bit of TLC over here. So just that corner. Let those fibres off. So what we should be left with is this is a finished surface, or will be a finished surface, slightly textured. Just very slightly because it's come off the carving tool. We want a fairly, well, I say fairly, we want a clean junction here. So these two planes, this one and this one, meet well and nicely here. Slightly stabbed in if necessary is okay. And these walls vertical, and we've got rid of all the little cuts from the setting in, and also these walls along here should be clean, or pretty clean, and this depth here should be the same, pretty much the same across, or certainly look the same, and that's what we're going to use elsewhere to eye it through. We'll eye this background through into this one anyway. So go to all the bigger bits of the carving, these bigger areas, and then we'll look at the smaller areas, and we're going to look at these tiny little corners here. We've been able to clear up this part of the background here quite happily, but it's these tight corners in here that's a real problem. And this is where another tool comes into its own, the short bent skew chisel. Here's one. And here's another one, and you can see that there's a left and right. They come in different sizes. This is a file one again, and I put details below. It's actually a little gouge, a little slightly curved number 3 with a corner. These are made by a different make, and I've got a narrower and slightly sharpened corner on these ones and taken off the back to make them really quite mean. And there's a left and right one. You always have them in pairs, and these are actually chisels. But what we need to do, why we have two, is because we're going to bring this into here, and of course up to a point we might need narrow ones, and we don't know whether the grain is going this way or this way, so we have the two options. So having cut into here, I'm going to pull this one in here and just start removing wood here like this, and then make sure that edge is cut here. So we come right into that corner and nick it out with, let's try this one this direction. Now when we've carved this over, this leg, we'll be able to get in there much more clearly, but for now we can get most of that out there like that, clean right up. So again, I can come in this direction, or I can come in on this direction, depending on how the wood lies. So let's try this direction first. I'm coming in like this, across, like so. Okay, that's okay. Just needs a little bit of wood taken away here. Just making sure these are well stabbed in, not heading down the ear, like so. Then I'm going to take away the background down here. So I'm just checking my depth. Looks about right, yep. And then into the corners, there, coming around here. And then into this one perhaps. I'll swap to the other one here, this way. So this bit is right in the middle of the carving, so we probably want to take particular care to make sure this is nice and clean. Okay, so what I need to do now is just work around everything, clean up all these corners, make sure everything's nice and tidy, and the same sort of depth going across, and that will be the end of the setting in. Let me just recap what we're looking for at the end of this stage. We've set in a clean outline around our subjects. The wall is vertical, slightly tilting out if you want to, but vertical, definitely no undercutting. The background should be clean as possible, and it should look as if it's passing behind one element through and so on. Use your depth gauge to check that, but most importantly use your eye so that it just looks flat. And if you've made something a little bit deeper, say, just spread it out a little bit, don't have any strong depressions. So with that, getting it to this stage, we're ready to start working on the hairs themselves.